Welcome. I'm Janel Koloski, a career mindset coach and actor.
And I'm Amanda DeBraux, a self-authenticity and prosperity life coach and actor as well. And we're your co-host of Mindset Artistry YouTube channel,
where we teach you the art of discovering and using your mindset
to build a career and life you desire.
It's been a minute. Welcome back to Mindset Artistry Podcast. We're so excited for this episode because we're going to talk about how to plan your year. It's sometimes a very overwhelming thing, but in this episode, you're going to learn how to plan your year like a pro. You're balancing the business, craft, and self-care. Talking to my creatives out there, we're going to cover why planning is crucial, how to plan your year step by step, and overcoming common planning challenges. So I'm going to jump over to Amanda in a second, but I do want to address why annual planning is essential for creatives to thrive, because we're all creative and we're in the flow, and that's where we do our best work, and we want to go with inspiration and all of this, but it's actually super helpful and even more crucial for people that consider themselves creatives to plan. And you can always pivot later. And this way, you know that you're hitting your mark with all the business stuff you want to do, you're staying on top of your craft, and you're taking care of yourself. Because I know I've definitely been in a situation where I feel like, oh my God, I haven't called that friend. Or when's the last time I took a vacation? Or, ooh, I've not been to class in a while. So planning just kind of helps you keep track of everything and empowers you and gives you more confidence. Amanda, what are your thoughts on that?
Planning is necessary. It is. Don't get me wrong. I am definitely a typical Aries where I love to go with the flow. I'm always like, let's do this. And I am like, yeah, let's try that. But what I've learned in order for me to be the most productive and focused and understand what needs to be done versus what can be like prioritizing is planning. Because I can get so hyper focused on a task, on one particular task. And I don't know if you could relate to this, but I can get so hyper focused on one task that it can consume my whole day. And then I'm like, oh, the 7 other things that I have on my list did not get touched at all. And so planning things out and giving myself a time frame or, deadlines or just, time frame, deadlines, a goal within that small task has been so effective. And honestly, for me, it has alleviated a lot of the stress that comes with follow through and executing goals. So planning is necessary. Go with the flow, embrace some new challenges and new things because it's going to happen. It goes without saying. But when you plan, you have a clearer understanding and a step back to look at, all right, this is the big picture. These are the small tasks I can do to lead to the bigger ones and things like that. So planning is necessary.
Yes, and it made the biggest difference in my career when I finally decided to sit down and make a plan. If you've been listening to us for probably any amount of time, and we love all of you so much, you've heard my story about how I was living on my friend's couch, selling shots of liquor at a wine store, trying to get people to buy a liquor bottle, which is really odd, and working as a nanny and personal assistant and doing all these things. And I was ready to give up on my creative career, but I'm very stubborn, luckily. And I sat down and I thought, I'm going to do this 1-year experiment. And right now this is trending on Instagram and TikTok, the 1-year experiment, and see if I made a plan and I actually followed through. Would my dreams come true? Because I didn't want to give up without trying that. And a lot of times when looking at myself and working with other creatives, the inconsistent focus is a big thing. Feast or famine cycle. So this is why it's crucial to plan, because you'll be all on fire, and instead of sticking with a discipline and consistency when it comes down to it, just doing a little bit every day, you'll apply to all the auditions and you'll be talking to your manager and you'll be working on your craft and you'll go hard for 3 weeks and then you put it down for 2 months. And so I've noticed that whenever I help my clients make a plan, and when I make a plan for myself, it definitely moves the needle a lot faster. And then power intention. And I know Amanda can speak a lot to this because she's so wonderful at doing this. This is another thing. It puts it out in the universe what you really want. And when you really know what you want, it really emboldens you and gives you the confidence. Like, okay, this is what I'm doing. These are the steps. And don't worry, creatives, you can always pivot. You're not married to this. It's all right. But having that power of intention is part of planning. And the last part of this is it supports creativity. So for me, my creativity will be blocked if I'm having anxiety or feeling like I don't know what's happening with my career or in my personal life. So when I really carve out time every single week for all these months, and we break it down into quarters, and I'll get into that later, to make sure I'm really doing what I need for myself and what I really want to do for my life, then my creativity can just really flourish because I've created space for that. Instead of creating space out of fear, I got to do this over here. Oh, no, I got to do this. Oh, I see this other person doing this thing. So that means I have to do that. It's okay to try things, but it's important to check in with yourself. So, Amanda, I'd love what you would have to share about that, the power of intention and making sure you're giving your space to check in and pivoting as you're making this plan.
Yeah, I love as you were talking about intention, I was like, yeah, intention. Because when you live with intention, you have the ability to connect with yourself, connect with your, if you're a spiritual person, your reality, because as they say, what is above is so below, but it also is within. So that's how, if you know what your intention is, you are now going to start making choices that align with that subconsciously. If you're just kind of floating through life and you're in this sailboat, imagine a sailboat in the middle of the ocean, the winds are blowing. And sometimes it's good to, go with the winds. But if you are just sitting there and just letting the boat kind of drift either which way the wind blows, you may crash dead into a rock, crash or, burn into a island. And so it becomes directionless. And then what happens is, where's your intention? There was an island over here. There was a person over there you could have saved or encountered, or another boat that you could have jumped on that was even bigger. But because you just kind of let it adrift, you drifted into the sea, into the abyss of the directionless life, if that makes sense, right? I know it kind of sounds like a circle that I'm speaking to, but it's true. So when you set an intention, it subconsciously aligns you with choices and the choices that you will make to take the next step. It will gear you into, all right, I don't think that this job or spending time with this person who's not feeding my creativity is going to serve me best. So I'm going to make a choice to go, no, not today. Let's plan it for next week or tomorrow. And so that gives you more confidence. It helps you set boundaries. It helps you create clarity in your life when you have setting those intentions. And because of that, what happens is you connect with your inner truth. When you set intentions, you're connecting to your inner compass, your inner self, and it becomes empowered. It becomes confident. So when you move forward, or when you take a step forward, or even when you have to take a step back, you're okay with it. You go, no, it's all right. You pause for a second. You go, all right, what does this mean? You have more confidence to slow down when you set intentions too. So understand. So with all that, again, it helps you set boundaries. It helps you gain clarity. It helps you connect with yourself and really have the confidence again to pivot in any situation that comes up, because then you're confident in who you are and understand that you trust your intuition and everything always works out. Sometimes you just kind of hit a brick wall, and sometimes you just got to take a left, a little right, and a turn here, and the wall was just a figment of your imagination. It was an internal block. So all those things is, like Janelle said, those three powerful things is setting intentions, self-care, and it's a cycle that is necessary, just like the universe, just like the seasons that we have in our planet. If that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking in parentheticals and all these things, and I'm like, am I making sense? It makes sense to me, but is it going to make sense
to me?
All right,
Yep.
cool. Then
the cycle.
There's one person out there that gets it.
Right. The circle of life, Oh, it's true. And then you brought up naturally the blocks, because we have a question for the audience, because as you're listening, we want you to take in what we're saying, but we also want you to pause and ask yourself certain things, because that's really where the growth comes from and how you learn how to pivot. So what is your biggest block, everyone, around creating and following a plan? So when you think of that, you're like, okay, what comes up for me? For me personally, it's overwhelm. And time. How much time is this going to take? Or when I look at my life, am I going to feel overwhelmed? Can I do it all? Whether it's career or something interpersonal or finances. And so then I will be afraid to look at it. But then I've just learned to usually breathe. Maybe I'll have to cry, do a meditation around some specific block. Insight Timer is a great app for that. And that's what I do. But what about you, Amanda? What's your biggest block around planning and following through the plan?
I mentioned it briefly. I'm a hyper-focused person. I hyper-focus on task too much to the point that I put everything else to the side. And that includes neglecting my self-care, neglecting my mindset. Like there are times where I've hyper-focused so much, I've forgotten to eat. And it's not like I've forgotten to eat, to drink, and I'm sitting there and I'm like typing away like a mad person or like whatever the task may be. I'm cleaning. I get so hyper-focused that I forget to include my self-care, which is why it's such a priority for me to incorporate self-care. And self-care doesn't necessarily mean like, taking a bath or working out. And literally it could be, I need to take 5 minutes to have a connection with my body and just, like you said, I love that you said like to take that breath or to scream out the anxiety is like building up within me or the anger or these subconscious limiting beliefs that I've held on to that I can't and I won't. It's not going to happen. It's too much. I can't do it. I don't understand. I'm not smart enough. Like all the things that come up when I'm addressing or trying to do something new as well, right? When I try to do something new, I hyper focus so much and it takes away from my productivity. So for me, the hyper focusedness, it's good and bad. There's always a good and bad kind of thing to it, right? There's always a positive, there's always a negative. It's finding that balance. That in between. And there are times where I really have to hyper focus and spend 2 hours on something. That's okay, because that's intentional. That's an intention that I'm setting. Like today, I'm going to spend 2 hours hyper focusing on one task because it requires that much attention from me. But if I don't plan it out, I can put a list together of 10 things I want to do, which I have on my wall right now, literally some paper, and I'll have 10. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to redo my goals for 2025 and I'm going to get it done. And I'll start sitting there. What are my goals? Every area of my life. And then 3 hours go by and I'm like, oh, do I even feel good about what I just did too? It's like the lack of checking in. And because I've worked in the corporate world, so I'm very much like, what's the word? Like streamlined when it comes to things and stringent when it comes to that. And I don't allow myself that flow and that pause and that creativity in between. So for me, again, that hyper-focusedness, and then it burns me out. Eventually it will burn me out. And then I have no energy to do anything else at all. I'm just like, nope, I'm good. I'm just going to go eat and then I'm going to crash. So for me,
it is pretty phenomenal. Remember one time we needed a website or something needed to be fixed. And I woke up the next morning. She's like, I did it all. I just got it done. I was like, I don't know how. I would have fell asleep on my computer. So it's just been really awesome to watch. But, like you're saying, sometimes it's not the most healthy thing. And I also love that you have that paper and it has this great, like a sheet of paper and she writes everything down.
Yes. I won't show you exactly what I'm talking about, but it's there and it's taped on my wall.
Yeah. And my friend Claire, she has this giant whiteboard on her wall because, if you're creative, you're a visual person many times. And so I haven't done that yet, but I've always been inspired. I'm like, oh, I should try that. That's really cool because then you just get it out and it's right there in front of you. What do I need to focus on? So I like to break it down into 3 pillars: the business, craft, and self-care. And self-care, we were talking about the bubble baths and taking a breath, but it's also making sure you're spending time with those you love and nourishing your soul. Maybe it's reading a book or spending time with an animal or going on a trip too. Because I found when I first moved to New York City, I was so worried about money and getting into modeling and acting that I was never taking a day for myself. I come from Pennsylvania. It's important for me to be in nature. And so also be thinking about that. So I'm going to quickly go through a 5-step process. And something that's helped me is to set aside the time and to start it, but then just be okay with coming back. It's really hard sometimes to just do everything at once, whether you're decluttering your home or trying to solve a math problem, or maybe you're making a plan for your life, to just sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to be done with it. And then I don't have to touch it again. Come back to it. It's okay. Take your time. That's all right. So step number 1, I'm always reflecting on the past year. What went well and what didn't go well? And how could I improve? I also try to do that every week of my life. But when I'm trying to make this big plan, that's something that I like to do. So identify your wins first. Take it from a person that unfortunately was negatively motivated. You're not good enough, or you're not fast enough, or you haven't reached the goal yet. So don't do that to yourself. What were the wins? And then what are you still interested in? And Amanda will speak to this, I'm sure, in a moment. Like, it's really good to be like, is this something that I really want to do anymore? Or how can I change my approach. So reflect on the past year, and then you're going to set new goals. And I like to break it down per pillar. So business, crafts, self-care goals. And you make like what I want by the end of the year. And then you break that down into quarters and then into weeks. And just with the SMART goals, I had a coach that sometimes it's like, okay, I want to book 4 TV shows this year, but he's like, also kind of have a goal where you want to collaborate with people you love that you can learn from and enjoy your life. There's got to be like a balance. I think financially it helps to obviously have the numbers, but with your SMART goals, make it specific, but give it some room to breathe. Step 3, I like this, and Amanda and I just did this, creating a monthly plan and kind of assigning a task for each plan. So I talked about annual and quarterly, but even if that's overwhelming to you, just being like, this month I'm going to get this done. And I know by reverse engineering my goals, it's like a domino effect. I do this month, and this is the next natural step, and that will get me to where I want to be. Step 4, building the weekly and daily habits into manageable steps. I have a friend that they went to the gym for 5 minutes a day just to get their body in the habit of doing it, of going. And then I think after like 2 or 3 weeks of doing that, then they added more time and they were able to stick to it versus I think in years past, they would go for 2 weeks hard, like I said in the beginning, and then give up for the whole year. And the final thing, and this is the most important thing, is scheduled check-ins. So I like to do that weekly review, quarterly review, because you may change your mind. You're constantly taking in information like wins and fails, however you want to look at it. It's information, and like Amanda says, like, am I really enjoying this? Is this something that I want to keep doing? Or, okay, because it's really sad to see people let 6 months or a year go by and then look back on their life and be like, I don't even know what happened. So you don't need to super analyze with a magnifying glass, but just check in with yourself so that you're finding the joy in every day. So that's that process. And we have one more thing of this episode of overcoming common planning challenges. But Amanda, I would love your thoughts on that breakdown of how to plan your year.
I love all of them. First of all, I think what I know is it took me a while to incorporate those type of steps and tasks in my life because I worked in corporate world. And when I left that, I wanted to leave behind this very military kind of like scheduled life. I woke up at 7 in the morning. Actually, no, I used to wake up at 6:16 in the morning to leave my house by 7:30 to get to work by 8:45, 9 o'clock, and to be there and go to lunch at 12 to 1 and leave at 5. But then it got extended to 6, 7 because I, wanted to extend the work to the next day. And so it took me a while to incorporate the conscious decision that I needed to plan and looking back and reflecting on my past, which meant I had to confront a lot of the things that I was trying to do and didn't do. So the failures, the mishaps, the things that I didn't do for myself, or I coulda, shoulda, wouldas, all those things. It was hard for me to reflect back and take that responsibility to do those things. So when I did, which is why I love being an empowerment coach and working with the inner voice, is because when I did do that, I healed a lot of trauma, a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of blocks within myself that were setting me back. It also helped me gain clarity on the direction that I wanted in life, what I actually wanted to do, what brought me joy. And what you talked about is like, what brings you joy? And I recognize that joy changes every single day. And you have to allow that flow. You have to allow yourself to experience joy in different ways. Because the thing that brought you joy yesterday, like a cup of coffee, may not bring you joy today. But maybe the smile on the barista's face that said, hey, good morning, could. And so it's being open to that opportunity of seeing joy being presented to you and available to you in different ways and allowing yourself to receive it. We talked about joy in a past episode and how it's sometimes really hard to accept joy in our lives because we're afraid of accepting joy because we're so stuck in traumatic patterns, survival instincts, habits that have kept us safe based on our past trauma and relationships, and we're afraid of repeating them. But these are choices that we have to make. And in order for us to not repeat things, we have to confront them. We have to accept that we made those choices in that moment based on our mindset and our emotions, and now choose, do we want to relive that, or do we want to be better or do better or evolve and grow? And the only way you do that is literally by sitting down and reflecting on your past, reflecting on who you are, who you want to be, that inner self, because that inner self is going to dictate your outer world. And if you keep being in like these pessimistic mindsets and negative thoughts and like money, worrying about money, yes, we all have money issues or whatever, like thoughts about money. We all do. But if you harp on it so heavily, you're missing out on opportunities that probably could bring you money way easier, or opportunities that can nurture your relationship with money. And so reflecting on a past year and then setting these beautiful, smart goals is understanding what areas in your life do you need or want improvement? What areas in your life don't you feel confident in? Great. That is fantastic. The fact that you can admit, like, I don't feel confident about finances, great. That means you can learn it. That means that there's an opportunity to teach yourself something new, to be open. We should always be wanting to learn. We should always be wanting to know more, because that's how we become better. And then we can reach behind us and help somebody else. And then setting these monthly goals, like Janelle just said, we literally sat down the other day and we planned out the whole year, and then we're like, all right, let's take it quarterly. But if you have an understanding of what you project for your year, it's less stressful. It's like, okay, great. I can take it quarter by quarter. It took me a long time to admit that I need to do that. But now I feel liberated. I've spent the time. I focused on it like 2-3 hours, or an hour here, an hour there. And now I'm like, oh, I'm good. Like, now I know what I'm giving myself to do in the next month, the next week, the next day. It gives me power. It gives me the confidence to move forward. And even if I do have hiccups in the moment, even if I do have challenges in the moment, I know that I can handle it, because I have myself, I have Janelle, I have people in my corner, I have other tools that I can go to, like life coaching and teachers that can help me through these moments, which is why we love what we do as far as, Mindset Artistry. We're making it a community where you don't have to feel alone in these challenging moments. You don't have to feel alone when you feel depressed and having overwhelming anxiety. It's so crippling that you don't even want to do anything. You put everything down. And then it's that connecting to that, building those daily habits, those monthly habits, and checking in at the end of a day. You have to check in with your mind, but also your body, because your body's going to tell you what your mind is neglecting to. If you have a back pain, like, what's that mean? What's that connected to spiritually? What's that connected to pain-wise? That means maybe my hips need to be stretched out a bit. Maybe I need to lay down. Like, I need to rub, all the things. If you pay attention and ask yourself, what do I need? What needs attention? The answer's right there. The answer's right there. We're sometimes too afraid to admit what we need to do because it requires something different from us. And sometimes we don't feel ready to do the different, but you have it within you. Always, 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 always. That's my 10 cents. That's my 10 cents.
Yes. And as you were speaking of joy, it made me think of the time where, and with my back, I hurt my back. It's like I had this extreme joyful weekend with friends and roller skating, and I had great acting headshots, and I was over the moon. And then 2 days later, I couldn't physically move because I hurt my back. And it sent me into a little bit of a depression because I love to move. I mean, everyone wants to be able to move, but I love to dance. There's nothing that makes me happier. And I missed a callback for a theater show that I was going to do. And so it made me think, when you were talking about paying attention, it's really great to also reverse engineer using your joy. So I said earlier about everything's your teacher, your wins or failures. And so what I learned in being laid up on my back was things like, okay, so what brought you the joy? Being with people you love, and friends, making new friends, and connecting people, and dancing and roller skating. So how can we have more of that? Well, we got to take care of our body. Have you been neglecting your body? Yes. And then spiritually, with the back stuff, it's like feeling burdened, feeling like people don't have my back, feeling stabbed in the back. And also that's like a whole generational thing. And so it just made me pay attention to, so if I want my joy and I want to chase my joy, that means I really need to slow down and address this other thing. I had to cut people out of my life. I had to start focusing more on my health, and stop running myself into the ground. You're given one body. You've got to take care of this thing. And then why was I running myself into the ground? Because extreme fear around finances, that no one had my back and I would just be like out on the street if I didn't make it happen, this extreme hyper dependence. So as you're planning your year, as you're reflecting, it's really fascinating to sit with this and be curious. Amanda's saying, like, you don't got to shame yourself. No judgment. You knew what you knew then. Right? Move forward and try not to do it again. So I love all of this. And to wrap it up here, I had a coach that told me to leave space for self-sabotage in my week, which I thought was
Yes.
really interesting. She's like, well, what do you normally do to take up time away from yourself? And I'm like, well, I'm usually worried about interpersonal relationships and making sure everybody's happy and that I'm not upsetting people. She's like, okay, great. You just set 30-minute timer and you go for it. You just think. You think about all those conversations you had where you were like, ah, that was awkward, or anything that you think is just collapsing in your life, and you just do it, and then just move on. So it sounds kind of funny, but it was actually a really great exercise. So leave some time for self-sabotage, leave time for rest, set realistic goals to avoid burnout. Amanda and I are talking about being hyper-focused and just wanting to do it all. A lot of times all of my clients do time audits. Don't have shame about how long it takes you to do something. I also used to have, because academically I was always trying to achieve, because that's where I got a lot of positive attention as well as with my dancing. And so I was like, okay, I only have this amount of time and I have to get it done. And if I don't get it done or I don't hit this mark, that means I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. This is so intense, but I know I'm not the only one that speaks to themselves this way. So yeah, it's just like, it means I'll never have my dreams if it takes me this long. If it's a dream within your heart, it's meant for you. Just keep showing up. Okay. And be honest with how much time. And like Amanda said, every day might bring you a different type of joy. And Amanda always talks about every day you might have a different capacity for different things. So I tell people, prioritize a scary thing or the thing where you're like, if I get this done, then I'm going to thank myself later. So do that in the beginning of the week, and then everything else can kind of fall behind that. Start small, stay flexible. Please leave your comments or send us a message, or we want to know what you're thinking about all this. After listening to us talk for 30 minutes here, what are you going to do differently that maybe you hadn't thought of before? Please let us know, because whether you know it or not, and this is something as a coach that I also love, is you inspire us. The things that you say or the things that you come up with or your takeaways. And I'm like, oh, that's so wonderful. Or, oh man, I should try that. I got to get a little better over here. So we love hearing from you. But before we jump off, Amanda, any last thoughts?
Yeah, my last thought is, what came up for me is one of my favorite books is The 4 Agreements. Do your best. Do your best and give yourself flexibility for your best to be different than it was yesterday, different than it will be tomorrow. But try to do your best. And all you can do is just try. Just try. And with that, give yourself the compassion and the kindness and gentleness to try. You will probably fuck it up a little bit. That's okay. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. That's the whole point of this journey, is that you will mess up because you don't know it all. Like you just don't. It's impossible. So give yourself the flexibility, like Janel said, give yourself the flexibility to just try, do your best. And if you fuck up, you take a pause. All right, what did I do that needs to change? Maybe this is a skill that I'm not so good at. That's okay. It's something that you can still learn. And if not, go to a friend. Call a friend. You know how when you're on those talk shows and it's like one of those game shows and like, well, you have 3 things. Like you can call a friend, ask the audience, like call a friend. Call a coach like myself and Janel. Anyone you feel in your field that you feel you can trust, that you value their input, that they're doing something that you aspire to do. Never look at other people as competition. Look at them as teachers, as inspiration. So at the end of the day, do your best. Be kind to yourself. And we're here for you, man. Listen, I've fucked up a lot. It's honest. We all have. But because I've acknowledged it, I no longer let it control me. I no longer live in my fuck up. I no longer live in the mistakes. I no longer live in the mishaps. I no longer live in the failures of things. I no longer live in that. It happened. I know, I wouldn't say better, but now I'm aware. I have the knowledge of it. I have the experience of it. And so now from this point on, I can make a choice. I can either go back in that old pattern, or I can take a step forward and say, I will do something different. I will try something different, because we have the ability to do that. So it's all about shifting our perspective, shifting our mindset, and shifting the connection that we have with ourselves, with people around us, and with the world around us, because we need more light in this world. We need you. Your story matters. You matter. So if anyone told you that you don't, we're telling you that you do. You absolutely do. Because you know how many times I felt like I didn't matter, but I do. I do, and you do. You're not here just to be here. You're not here just to exist. You're here to live. You're here to experience. You're here to share. So share, live, and love.
You heard it. You better do it, everybody. Live and love. Yeah, and I love that. Not living in I was like shame spiraling myself this past weekend about a couple things. Every day's a gift. And a lot of times I'll just find myself going over the same situation in my head. And your body can process that so much faster for you than like just, trying to analyze it. That means that some part of you, your body is actually physically hurting around this situation. I don't know, it was some type of shame thing, of course. I was like, all right, let me breathe. And then I cried, and then I was able to let it go. And then I made boundaries with myself and other people that I'm going to change my behavior here and here. I didn't need to think about it anymore. So we haven't recorded an episode so long, and I just want to like give. We got to get off of here. Yes, but everyone, please carve out a little time this week to set some goals. Let us know. You can send us a message. We also have a workshop that helps people set goals and plan. Message us about that. And you can always book a session. We have consultations where we can guide you, and it's free. I would take advantage of it. I'm just saying. But until next time, we love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye. What are your thoughts about this episode?
Drop it in the comments and let us know what you want to dive into next.
Subscribe, like, share, and click the link below to book a free consultation. And
we'll see you next time.